You see something fly across the screen really quick. It's just my earbud.
Okay. All right, folks. Looks like we are
Let's do this.
live.
Get out of my way, though.
I'm sorry. Okay. It's very tense in here today, apparently. No. Okay, we're just going to run a couple of quick tests. Yeah, everything looks good on our end. Everything sounds good on your end?
Good. Everything's sounding good.
Fantastic. So, okay. So there you go. Just chuck them. Yeah. Hopefully you don't lose that in the chair.
It's tense because of that hat you're wearing. And I'm going to crush your dreams tonight.
You know what? I don't think you are. But we're going to try. You're going to attempt to crush the dreams. The only man walking Earth that could crush my dreams is Luka Doncic. But we'll see. But if that doesn't tell you what we're going to be talking about today, if you didn't read the title or whatever and you just happen to stumble upon this, first of all, welcome. Thank you guys so much for joining us. But we are going to be doing an NBA Finals preview in this episode of the Lopes Goes Last podcast. And basically what we have done is we have compiled, and I should actually probably pull mine up, that'd be a great idea, 5 different statistics that will allow the team that we have chosen in these finals to be ultimately victorious. We're basically going to conduct a research paper here to kind of figure out
exactly. That's a research paper.
Well, I mean,
that's better than research.
Well, you've got you got supporting points and stuff. You got all these paragraphs.
Yeah, but saying research paper just too many bad flashbacks.
No research papers. But no, well, basically what we're doing is we've got a thesis.
Something more important,
and it really does.
I'm just here to keep you off track.
Stay in school, kids. We're going to be supporting our arguments with 5 statistics or facts, and then we're just going to kind of leave it up to you guys. What do you think? Whose argument do you think was more convincing? And ultimately, regardless of arguments or not, who do you guys think is going to win the 2024 NBA Finals? You guys already know what my choice is going to be, which means you know what Dan's choice is going to be. This is going to be a lot of fun. Dan, how... I do have to ask, because I feel like my research into this was relatively straightforward, just based on the Celtics' dominance throughout the year, and obviously there's plenty of different ways that I could go with this to make me feel reasonably good. But on the Dallas end, you had basically half a season of who cares, because it was a completely different team. The defense was atrocious. So how did you find your research for this for yourself?
I have some fun facts. A couple of things around the supporting cast. Some around the Dallas's dynamic duo. Because that's what's fun about these two teams. It's like I can't wait for this matchup. I'm watching every minute of it as much as I can, just because both teams have such a dynamic duo, backcourt. It's honestly weird to think of Luka Doncic as a backcourt player because he's built like a wing, almost a power forward in a sense. Kind of like Dirk was, with the stretch 4 kind of, and almost kind of one of the first to even, kind of play that position. Like Luka's kind of like a smaller, he's not as tall as Dirk was, obviously, but, it's just weird how we consider backcourt players versus frontcourt players now.
Yeah, sure.
It's very, so like to see, so that's why I want to kind of say dynamic duo, but a lot, Luka can run the point just as good as Kyrie can. We've seen that throughout the playoffs. We've seen that together with them. So I have some facts kind of about their backcourt, just kind of comparing some history. That's where I kind of took a lot of these stats. Is like, okay, how are we looking at this current team, this current iteration, a lot of current stats with what they're doing versus other NBA champions? How do they kind of stack up against that? So that's where some of my stats come from. Then I got some movie trivia for my last point.
Movie trivia?
Yeah, it's really quick and really easy, but listen, I'm gonna tease some movie trivia. Right?
I'm excited to where you're going with that, but I do have to say, if you're pulling out movie trivia for basketball and how you're gonna break the finals, I'm a little worried about your facts.
No, don't worry about that. No, okay, nothing to worry about. It's just to enhance my point and kind of a moniker that backcourt has been called often. So.
Sure. Okay. Well, I don't know how we're going to exactly get this thing started. Do you think you should go first? I should go first.
I don't care who goes first. We can
Okay.
put 1-1 back and forth each one. So.
Sure. Let you know. I have. I'm actually interested. Let's end on your movie thing because I'm very curious.
Yeah, no,
let's do that.
The last one.
Okay, perfect.
I'm saving the best for last.
So then, in that case, I will just start and we'll get going with this.
Get
All
the
right.
viewers entrenched somehow, right?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, just for in case anybody's marginally confused, I'm going to be obviously playing the Celtics, right? Like I'm going to be presenting facts of this why the Celtics are going to be victorious in the series. He's going to be presenting why the Mavs are going to be successful.
I didn't even it crossed my mind to maybe think of like, would you take the Mavericks side? But I was like, I gotta give you your team. So
I mean, I definitely could probably present an argument.
I have no problem. I don't think you. I think you could too. I was like, I don't want to do that to you.
Yeah, that would be a bit cruel if I had to sit on here and be like, I think Luka's gonna be the best ever. You know, like just like so, like just be this so depressing the whole time. All right.
So when I'm right, you'll wish you took my side then.
No, I won't be because listen, I in the 2022 finals, right? I had just started the podcast. It was only a few months old at this point. It's 2 years ago now, and I picked the Warriors in 7, and it hurt me to my core. But I truly felt, even watching that Celtics team and knowing that they were better than the Warriors talent-wise, and just seeing, I just had that gut feeling. I'm like, man, I don't think this is the Celtics' year. I don't see it. But this time, I think it is. I have that feeling in my bones. I hope that feeling's not ripped away from me painfully and swiftly. But if it is, then it is. But I'm going to go down with the ship, and we'll see. But with that, all that being said, my first statistic as to why the Boston Celtics will win the 2024 NBA Finals. The Celtics have an 84% win percentage when attempting 45 or more threes this year. In fact, they went exactly 27-5 in those games. The Mavs were 11-3 in those games, so also very good in those games where they attempted 45 or more threes. Obviously not nearly as many as the Celtics, about half, actually a little less than half. But the key difference between the Celtics and the Mavs in that statistic is that only one of those victories that the Mavs had in those games was against a playoff or play-in team. And it was against the Lakers, who obviously ended up being, barely out of the play-in, basically. Right. So all three of the losses, however, that they had in those games were against playoff or play-in teams. Sacramento, Milwaukee, and Oklahoma City. So it's hard for me to kind of trust the Mavs in that circumstance if there are a super high volume three-point shooting team. We know that they can do it. Yep. Obviously, they have guys that can put up a ton of threes in Kyrie, in Luka. PJ Washington can shoot from out there. And then obviously you got some guys off the bench like Tim Hardaway, Jaden Hardy, guys like that. Dante Exum that can shoot. But for me, I obviously significantly trust the Celtics more in a shootout of a game. Now, obviously, I will go more in depth as to why this is an important statistic as we kind of go along. I don't want to kind of give everything right away, sure. But you're going to notice that there's a theme with the vast majority of my statistics, and so that's the big one for me is when the Celtics can shoot a ton of threes, they are real. And I'm not talking about making a ton of threes, by the way. I'm talking about just straight up attempting 45 threes. Just get up the shots, right, and the math will take care of itself. 84% win percentage. I like that in favor of the Celtics.
Yeah. No, I like that. I mean, so many, we've seen this league become such a three-point phenomenon. Every team. I mean, it's shaped how teams are built now. Again, going back to the front court, back court thing, you rarely have anybody in your starting five that can't shoot a three. I mean, even Brook Lopez and others on the Milwaukee Bucks that they can shoot the three. They aren't, maybe that attempt a lot, but I mean, pretty much anybody on every team can shoot the three ball at this point. Mm-hmm. And what I find interesting too, especially since we're getting players more and more. I feel like that, and Anthony Davis. If he had a growth spurt late, I think this is if I have this was the correct player, but any player, middle school, high school, you're the point guard. You're kind of the smallest guy on the team. You might not have had your growth spurt yet. You might have your growth spurt late, but you've learned to command the team, be the ball handler as you grow up. Then all of a sudden you get that growth spurt, so now you can dunk over everybody, but you're still the ball handler, the primary ball handler. The Warriors were built to stop LeBron, and everybody on that team could handle the ball at the time, and those especially those early title runs. So I mean, the fact that we're talking about hoisting 45 3-pointers in a game, and that being a good thing for a majority of for these two teams, especially Boston, is just amazing to me because it's you go back to 90s, even to early 2000s. The 3-pointer was there, but you had your 3-point specialist. You had your not Miller, but you had your Ray Allen. You had Core for Atlanta there for a while, and it's like you had people. There were 3-point specialists for the longest time. Or you had your 3-and-D specialist for a long time where they shot the 3 and played defense, but now it's like, no, everybody much can shoot the 3 now.
Absolutely.
So I mean, it's there's got to be some records. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some records set, for playoff threes, combined or in a game or in a first half, quarter. All the people that track those in real time is insane, but, we could see a lot of those records broken, I think.
Definitely possible. Absolutely.
My first number, kind of a short one here, but my first number is 33. That is the number of wins that the Dallas Mavericks have had since the trade deadline. A lot of this postseason has come down to the bench players, P.J. Washington, Daniel Gafford. Gafford has played a lot of minutes. They missed him Game 4. He came back for Game 5 again, played a lot of minutes. But again, kind of just... no true center for Dallas, really, in a sense. But, Gafford kind of fills that hole for them, playing a lot of minutes and everything. But both him and Washington were acquired at the deadline. Dallas went 29-23 to start the season. They have since won, this includes the postseason, they have been since the trade deadline, won 33 games and only lost 14. So, we're winning 2 out of every 3 games, essentially. So they're on a great winning clip. They've run through a lot of teams, which we'll get to down here in a little bit. But I mean they're accustomed to winning right now, and I feel like these playoffs too. We have seen the road team win a lot of games. The first round not as much, but I feel like since the second round and past first round, there's home court advantage, but then it's like home court advantage doesn't matter. Like, no lead is safe.
Sure.
At certain series, it doesn't come down to who has home court advantage. We talked about that last week on the pod. It's talking about we expected Dallas, that series to go 6 because we figured Minnesota was going to defend home court after that Game 4 win. Didn't. Yeah, that game was over in the first quarter. First quarter,
annihilated. They got run off the floor.
Luka was like NBA Jam shooting the 3-pointer that first quarter. Holy cow! It's like he couldn't miss. I think he missed like 2 of his 8 3-point attempts. 5 of his full field goal attempts. It's just he couldn't miss. Like I said, NBA Jam. And then Kyrie was like, "My turn."
Oh yeah.
And he just kept the foot down. And Minnesota was like, "I guess we tried."
Yeah.
So they're winning games. They're close. They've closed out games. Kyrie was undefeated in closeout games coming into that Game 4 that last series.
Excuse me.
Now I think he's like 16-1 in closeout games in playoff history. Mm-hmm. So I mean, he does have that blemish on that record, but they kept, analysts keep them bringing that up like every time they were a closeout game. So I mean, eventually that's going to run out. But the fact that he knows how to play crunch time, so it's like you got this win streak, you got these wins you've been accumulating, you've beaten good playoff teams. It's they're accustomed to winning, and they know how to battle for wins. I mean, I think Minnesota showed, they've played 3 different types of teams between everybody that they beat. So I mean, they've been really good since they've added their players. They've got, and then we talked about this in the first, before the first round happened. It's like, who do they have outside of Kyrie and Luka? And I think in a way it's still kind of like, who do they have? But they're starting to step up at the right spots at the right time.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, they've been excellent since the deadline. I will say, though, one of those 14 losses was a 28-point loss in Boston. So there's also that. Now, people are saying, oh, Daniel Gafford only played 10 minutes because he had... It doesn't matter. Still, I mean, I don't know. Everybody was healthy. They were all there. All the players were in the locker room. There wasn't anybody hurt. Kyrie played. Luka played. PJ Washington played. Gaffer played. Lively played. Everybody played. It is what it is. But no, definitely, they went on a huge win streak at one point, like 12 straight games that they won or something like that. They've been certainly
at one point they were fighting to stay out of the play-in. As tight as the Western Conference was, so I think they kind of gave them that boost to be like, wow, we did this, and we're the number 5 seed in the finals. Let's see what we got.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, they've definitely been excellent, and they've earned their way here for sure. Okay, second point here. This one's also a short one. So the Celtics took and made the most three-point shots in the NBA this season, including attempting over 250 more three-point attempts than the Dallas Mavericks and making over 100 more attempts than the Dallas Mavericks. Now, again, I'm going to get more into why these matter, but you're going to continue to see a theme that I'm going with here. I'll give you a little bit of kind of background as to why I'm taking this this kind of stance here. So the Dallas Mavericks obviously are fantastic and I would say borderline elite, if not definitely elite, defensive team at this point. Since they've added Washington and Gafford, their defense has improved tremendously. However, I think mainly their strength on defense is packing the paint on the strong side. Now, weak side closeouts help defense other than actually in the paint, flashing to the wing, double teaming, things like that. They have not been very good at those things. We saw it in Minnesota where, at the times that they did kind of bum rush Anthony Edwards, despite Anthony Edwards being exhausted and quite frankly being in a little bit over his head, it didn't really work. He picked them apart. There was several games where he had 8, 9, 10 assists, and he's not really a playmaker like that. So they were able to kind of beat it. And so for me, I think one of the real weaknesses that we're going to see for the Dallas Mavericks is going to be the ability to guard the three-point line when you have nothing but shooters at all times on the floor. We saw it with Minnesota where they were able to help off guys like Jaden McDaniels, help off obviously somebody like a Rudy Gobert, who is a basic non-factor on offense. I mean, he shot less than 50% on shots less than 2 feet from the rim. Like, he's a non-factor on offense. Yeah. So, but against the Celtics,
kind of a non-factor in defense. But
it's obviously. But in this series, there's not a single person that the Celtics are going to play, barring any kind of catastrophic injury, of course, that is going to shoot less than 40% from three, or at the very least less than 37%. You can argue, Jaylen Brown really only shoots 30%. Okay, fine, whatever. He's Jaylen Brown. He scores 30 points a night. Shut up. But whatever. You don't have a non-shooter on the floor. So the strong side help, the packing the paint, it's not going to be nearly as effective as it was against an LA Clippers, who obviously have Zubac on the floor that's a non-shooter, or Terrence Mann, who's a decent shooter when he actually shoots threes, but he doesn't really shoot them in a high volume, or at the very least he's not. If we were playing NBA 2K, his shot tendency would be low. Like, kind of like that, where he's not super aggressive. He's not out there trying to seek his own shot because he's got Harden, Westbrook, Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, all these guys on the floor that are quote-unquote better than him, so he's not really looking for it. Speaking of which, Russell Westbrook plays a lot. Obviously, non-shooter. So at all times against the Clippers, you can help off on defense. At all times against the Thunder, you could say, well, we're going to live with Chet Holmgren making threes, which, by the way, he didn't. I didn't realize how poorly he shot from three in that series. 22% from three, Chet Holmgren shot in that series. Terrible. Obviously, we know that eventually Josh Giddey got benched because of how poorly he was playing. They were just helping off of him the whole time. Lou Dort, love him defensively. Can't stand it when he shoots the ball. I don't understand why they keep giving him the green light. To me, he's just not that good of a shooter. So at all times, again, on the Thunder, you have somebody who you can help off of, pack the paint on the strong side, and force the offense to basically take a shot that you want them to take. You can't do that against the Celtics when they're fully healthy. Mm-hmm. When they go to their bench, Sam Hauser, 40% three-point shooter. Peyton Pritchard, 40% three-point shooter. Al Horford, 40% three-point shooter. The list goes on and on and on. So when I say these three-point statistics here, you could say, okay, so they take more threes. Who cares? Well, eventually the math is going to start to just completely bury the Mavericks here. At a certain point, when you're taking so many more threes than another team, unless you are just literally chucking up 40 bricks a night, which is pretty rare, especially for the Celtics this year. It happened a couple of times. But if the Celtics get up 45 threes in a game, it's going to be rough. The Mavs are going to have to somehow figure out a way to keep up. And the Mavs just, I don't really think, have the personnel to be able to do that and do it consistently on a 7-game basis to where they're going to beat the Celtics at their own game 4 times out of 10. And these stats, again, 250 more attempts, 100 more makes on the season than the Mavs. They have taken and made more threes in the playoffs than the Mavs, at least on a per-game basis. Obviously, the Mavs have played more games than the Celtics, so they've ultimately taken more. But point being, I just think that the Celtics have a huge edge in terms of taking and making threes in this series.
Yeah, and then honestly, this kind of goes with my next point, too. I was going to bring up three-pointers. It's... you're talking about, attempts, but I'm going with made three-pointers. You mentioned the regular season, Celtics were first, Mavs were third, and made three-pointers. In the playoffs, the Mavericks are currently first in the playoffs. But I think the rankings flip-flopped to where it's like, it was first and third for the regular season, Celtics, Mavs, where now it's like Mavs are first, Celtics are third. So again, to your point, there's a lot of them. I feel like there is actually a variety of guys that the Mavs have, outside of Kyrie and Luka. So you got PJ Washington, Derek Jones, Maxi Kleber, Josh Green. They're not as big as names, big as may not have big spots as some guys in the Celtics have had. But I feel like they still have a variety of three-pointers. The Mavs actually lead the playoffs with 4.6 corner three-pointers per game. So 34% of their three-pointers come from the corners. PJ Washington leads those individuals. He has 28 made corner threes, which is 5 off of Bruce Bowen's record from 2007 of 33. Derek Jones is tied for second with 17 corner threes. And those corner threes, they help spread out their offense. It's a lot of wide open court for Luka, Kyrie. What I found interesting too, kind of, going to my some of my stats kind of go back to comparing like how other NBA Finals teams fared. There's only 2 teams in NBA history that have won the title with making at least 14 3-pointers a game. The 2021 Bucks, they averaged 14.4. The 2022 Warriors, 14.3.
I'm pretty sure Steph made 10.3 of those.
Most likely. If not, something like that. Yeah, he was cooking. The chef was cooking. The Mavs are right in that mark, 14.6. But the Celtics are right there at 16.5, like even far above those teams. Going back to it's like
on a per game basis, the Celtics are still making.
Yeah, so it's we love a lot of people love to say you live and die by the three. It's almost it would be very interesting. It's like I'm sure we'll go to a couple games where the Mavs are hot, you can't stop them, and the Celtics are pedestrian, 34-35 from 3, and they'll probably flip on its head for another game or two. And so it's like, if this comes down to Game 6 or Game 7, it's probably going to be who's the better three-pointing team in that final game.
Yeah.
Who's got fresher legs? Who's got transition threes and stuff like that. So as interesting, we both have kind of a similar point here. But yeah, again, the NBA is dominated by three-pointers. You need plenty of your team to shoot the three, be able to make the three. And I feel like you have. With Gafford, with Lively, you have guys for the Mavericks that can rebound those missed threes. But I mean, they have to go up against Kristaps Porzingis and Al Horford at the same time. So I mean that in itself is going to be
neither of which are our best rebounders on the team. Jason Tatum led the team in rebounds this year too.
So yeah, just throwing Tatum in there too. It's going to be the team that does kind of go cold from 3. It's like, does that team get the second chance points? Do they not? Rebounding battles. Like, I feel like these two teams, this series is going to come down to those little mistakes, those little, did you get that second chance point there where that could have tied the game and could have kept you in that game? Did you not get that rebound and the team got the rebound and hit a three, a transition three with no, a wide open transition three, stuff like that.
Sure.
And both teams have that's what's fun. That's what's going to be great about the series. Both teams have plenty of players that can make that open three, that can make that contested three, and it's just be exciting to watch just that battle itself. Yeah. And the residual effects if one or both teams are cold.
Yeah, for sure. It's and I think the point that one of the main points I'm going to continue to try to make throughout this video is, certainly every team has the ability to go wildly hot or wildly cold from 3-point range on any given night.
Right.
And, which that kind of always gives the Mavs a kind of a puncher's chance, as I'll call it, right? Yep. Where, hey, on any given night, we could just get super hot from three, and the Celtics might as well have just not shown up that night because, there's nothing you could do. But at the same time, in a one-game kind of Game 7 scenario, that all makes sense, right? Where, you don't want to go to a Game 7 against the Mavs because all it takes is Luka going, I woke up today, and you will die. And that you might as well not.
So he said in Game 5,
right? And so it's in a one game kind of situation, I completely understand that puncher's chance. But for a series, I tend to look more towards patterns. I tend to look more towards team reputation because I would say roughly 90 to 95% of the time in a 7-game series, the better team will always win. Or at the very least, the team with the better matchups will always win. Maybe not necessarily the better overall skill team. You can use that argument with Denver, right? Where Denver was probably the quote-unquote best team in the West, but they ran into a team that was literally built to stop them. They stopped them, and then that team got mollywopped by someone who's, quote, not as good as them, right? So, it's just the team with the better matchups going to win 90 to 95% of the time in these games. So, for me, looking at the Celtics, again, their reputation says if it gets into a shootout, I would rather have the Celtics in those situations when that's kind of the way it goes. And continuing that theme, again, I said it was going to be a theme here. This one's a bit of a longer one, so forgive me if it gets to be a little bit wonky here. The Celtics are second in the league in opponent three-point percentage, meaning they are the second best team in the league in preventing made three-point shots percentage-wise. Not necessarily volume-wise, but percentage-wise. And the amazing thing about it is they're actually bottom 10, 21st in the NBA in allowing three-point attempts, which means they allow a lot of three-point attempts, but teams are shooting at a very low percentage. Why is that? The Celtics are excellent at switching screens and closing out on shooters. They are probably the best team in the NBA at that. Guys like Jason Tatum, Drew Holiday, Derek White, they are known for their ability to navigate around screens, close out on shooters, and contest shots. And then, of course, you got the beautiful Cornet contest, which if I had my way, we would not see one singular time in this series. But it's there if you need it, I suppose. No offense, Luke Cornet, we all love you. But, no. If he has to go out there against Daniel Gafford or Derek Lively, he's going to get eaten alive. But regardless, the point being is that the Celtics, again, it's not like they're like, oh, they barely allow any threes, and so you can't really. No, they actually allow quite a bit of three-point shots to be shot, but they're still holding opponents to the second lowest percentage in the NBA on these makes, which means I have confidence that on those corner threes that you were just talking about, where Luka is driving, has somebody on their hip, and he kicks out to a wide open PJ Washington or a wide open Derek Jones or a wide open Josh. I almost said Jalen Green. That's the Houston guy. Josh Green, excuse me, or Tim Hardaway or whoever it is. We have a better shot of being able to close out on those shooters, which again, that's nice. By comparison, the Mavs are 17th in the NBA, so right in the middle of the pack in terms of allowing three-point percentage. The only two playoff teams this year that were worse ranked in the NBA were Cleveland, who they were actually one spot below Dallas, so they were very, very close. But the saving grace for Cleveland is that, unlike the Celtics, they allow the fewest three-point shot attempts per game in the NBA. So you can kind of reverse it, right? It's like, yeah, you may allow a not great percentage, but we at least prevent them from being shot. So their closeouts, you could say, are so good that, they're not even shooting them, right? So that's their saving grace. And then the New York Knicks, they were 21st in the NBA, but quite frankly, I'm willing to give them a pass, considering they spent half the year with 90% of their roster dead.
That roster changed every month.
Yeah, so I'm willing to give them a pass.
Change every week.
Exactly. So for my money, there is an argument to be made that the Dallas Mavericks are the worst defense in the playoffs at defending the three-point line. Now, again, you could say obviously the New York Knicks are probably there just because the team that was injured all year is the one that showed up. So fine, I'll give you that. But they are statistically one of the worst teams at defending the three-point line in attempts and in percentage. That does not bode well when you are facing the team that, again, I'll go back to my second point, took and made the most three-point shots in the NBA this year by a lot. It's not close. So to me, that's, if I'm the Mavs, that scares me. And the reason why the Celtics have made, to me, 16 threes per game in the playoffs instead of 18, 19, 20 is because there was 5 games where Al Horford could not make a three whatsoever. And Kristaps Porzingis was not out there. He stretches the floor even more. He's going to make more of those threes than Al Horford did. Now, granted, Al had a game where he hit 6, and he had a game where he hit 7. So maybe it'll even out regardless. But point being, if I'm the Mavs, this math is just, it's scaring me if I'm the Mavs. Because at a certain point, you got to sit there and think, man, okay, if the Celtics take 45 threes a game and make whatever, 20 threes a game, 8 to 6, 17 threes a game. Mm-hmm. That means that we've either got to get close to that, or we've got to get to the free throw line, which, other than Luka Doncic, and I guess Kyrie Irving, although his volume for free throw shooting is not great, there's not really a lot of guys on that team that consistently get to the free throw line on the Mavs. So you're probably not going to have a huge free throw discrepancy, right? So that means, oh gosh, we probably have to make 60 to 65% of our two-point shots, which is possible. Except the Celtics just beat a team who for 4 straight games made 60% of their two-point shots. And they lost all 4 games. So even if you do make 60% of your two-point shots, how the heck are you going to do this? Turnovers? The Celtics are the best team in the league with turnover percentage. They had the least turnovers in the NBA this year. To me, this is it's just starting to pile up and pile up and pile up. But the Mavs they're going to have to be sitting there searching, going, how the heck math-wise are we going to make this thing work? We're going to have to offensive rebound the heck out of this thing and maybe figure it out. Oh, crap, the Celtics were top 4 in the league in rebounds, too. And offensive rebounds. God dang it. Listen, folks, there's a reason why the Celtics won 64 games and only lost two games in the playoffs despite having their third best player not playing the entire time. They're very good. And the math, again, with all these threes and everything else that I've talked about here, it scares me if I'm the Mavs. Truly, it does.
Yeah. Well, if I'm the Mavs, though, I'm not scared of it because I just beat 3 teams in the playoffs. So my next stat is 50. So I just beat 3 teams in the playoffs that were a combined record of 164 and 82. Nearly 67% winning percentage.
Yeah.
Then I knocked out the Clippers. They won 51 games. They knocked out the Thunder, won 57. They downed the Wolves, who had, and I just lost the number of the wins that they had. I can't do the math that quick. So that's, but I got every three teams, 50-plus wins. And part of that, I feel like, especially against Minnesota, kind of what you're just referring to, which, is a big reason, going to be a big reason, if they can force the Celtics into more than usual turnovers, that's going to help them. It's going to be those categories of who won the turnover battle, who won the rebounding battle, because we know both these teams can shoot the 3. They can make the 3. So it's going to come down to those rebounding battles. It's going to come back down to those turnover battles. Who's spreading the floor better, who's getting those assists, who's getting that third, fourth pass and that shots being made. So it's, just watching them against the Wolves, the fact that they were able to kind of play as hard as they would, and you have in the Wolves had Gobert on their team, and they still, and he was, I wouldn't say a non-factor in defense, but he wasn't as good as you would expect a defensive player of the year to be. No. He wasn't. Cat I felt shrunk away from matchups that he could overpower his guy. He did at times, They obviously had a really good game 4. They really got to, I really feel like they really affected Anthony Edwards. But I look at the Clippers. We talked about that, before the first round. It's like the Clippers have Paul George and a couple go-to guys, but and maybe one of the deeper teams. Maybe we're one of the deeper teams in the playoffs. But again,
I agree.
2-3 guys. Again, the Thunder. Once you get past SGA and Chet Holmgren, for the most part, not saying they don't have other good players, but if you look at their top players versus the rest of their team, Mavericks were able to key in a couple guys. Mavericks were able to key in a couple guys against the Wolves. That's not going to be as easy against Boston, but I feel like they've kind of won against all odds already. It's kind of like, what do we have to lose?
Sure.
So it's like, and people were talking about, I feel like we even touched on this last week, people were talking about the Celtics having like an easy road. Nobody had an easier or harder road than anybody else. Like, it's tough. It's the playoffs. Everybody's playing harder. Everybody's playing tougher. Everybody's going to bring their A++ effort. So it's like, there's no easier or hard road. It's like the teams still beat the teams they still beat. You still got to the NBA Finals. You're one of only 2 teams to say that. Tough luck that you didn't get there. Don't use that as an excuse. Like, easier road. But I will say, beating 350-win teams doesn't come often. Yep. The only 3 teams to do it to win and then won the finals were all Laker teams, honestly. So I mean, that's not surprising. Yeah. It's like 2001, Shaq and Kobe. 2008, 2010, Shaq and Paul Gasol both times. In the 2010 Lakers, they followed up beating 3 teams in the West by beating your Celtics that year. Yeah. I think it's again a lot of my sets are kind of going comparing other teams versus other finals comparatives, and I feel like the Mavs beating the Wolves prove that they belong here. Now it's just a matter of can they prove that to the rest of the league, saying like, yeah, we belong here and we belong in the conversation of title contenders for the next few years. But yeah, so that's my third stat of the night. Okay. 50 wins. They're battle tested. Tall effort against Celtics. A lot of options for that offense. A lot of good defenders, 1 through 5 versus most of the teams that they've had to face. But again, everybody counted them out. I picked them on a flyer in the first round. I think both were kind of like, there's no way they get past the Thunder. They did. They're both like, well, I guess they should get past the Wolves at this rate, and they did. Yep. In really good fashion, 4-1 series. So, both the teams are well rested. I think I saw. I'm going to throw a bonus stat in here. Pretty sure the winner of Game 1 wins the series like 75% of the time in playoff series, and it's in an NBA Finals it's still like 70%. So it's like, both these teams are well rested. It's like the Celtics technically got an extra day, I think. Yeah, an extra day or 2. I think I got an extra 2 days. Essentially, we're looking at a week for both teams of rest. Maybe a little less because of Dallas, because they played that a game a day later, and they're traveling to Boston. But we've seen Dallas win on the road before. They took the first 2 in Minnesota, of all places. Yep. 3 out of 4. 3 out of 4. Thank you. Yeah. That Game 1 thing should be, it won't necessarily guarantee, but you're in a really good standing if you get that Game 1. And the winners of Game 3 in a tied series, winner of that one is, I think, like that 65-70% win rate too. So, they're battle tested, and I'm just excited for the series.
I am too. Definitely, it's a good nervous that I am. But a lot of Celtics fans have waited, and we've come close. We've been knocking on the door for about a decade, and it's we think it's time to bring it home. My fourth stat of the night, obviously you just kind of mentioned a few statistics in terms of how often teams will win playoff games, if they win Game 1 or win Game 3. How about this one? Teams in the playoffs who shoot more three-pointers than the other team win 79% of games. Wow. Not shoot better, shoot more.
Shoot more.
3-point.
Because the volume is going to be there.
Exactly. The math, again, I keep saying this, the math just sometimes does not add up. I mean, it's amazing when I think back to Cleveland, the series against Cleveland. A lot of what J.B. Bickerstaff, the Cleveland head coach, talked about was we need to find a way for the Celtics to take less threes. That was their game plan. It was force them to not shoot three-pointers.
And random. Well, no, that was Indiana.
That was Indiana, yeah. Random was
Call
just...
back to that.
Yeah, the Pacers just did whatever the hell they wanted. Literally. No, that's a real thing. But if that's your game plan against the Celtics, I mean, obviously there's tangible ways to do that, of course, especially for Cleveland, who with Evan Mobley at the 5 was a bit more switchable on defense than a lot of other teams would have been in the finals, obviously, or in the playoffs in general. I think the only other team that may have been that switchable would have probably been Indiana, except most of their guys are kind of bad at defense. So, physically, body-wise, they may have been able to switch, but Obi Toppin, no. It depends. But Dallas does not have that ability. Dallas is not a very switchable defense. Obviously, you don't ever want to switch Kyrie Irving onto Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis. You don't want to do that. Whereas on the flip side, is it the most ideal situation where Derek White is switched onto a center? No, but I literally watched the man block a Miles Turner turnaround jump shot. He's a great shot blocking guard. He can hold his own at times in the post. You obviously don't want to do it regularly, but he can do it. We all know how good Drew Holiday is at guarding anybody 1 through 5 anywhere. He has guarded Joel Embiid one-on-one for the majority of games this year against the Sixers when Joel Embiid was healthy. He's guarded guys like Anthony Davis. He's guarded LeBron. He's guarded Steph Curry. He can guard everybody in between, from Darius Garland all the way to Ivica Zubac. Anybody from the fastest guy in the NBA to the slowest. He can guard anybody. And so, shoot, you want to switch to him on the post? Go right ahead. Sure, you'll make a few baskets. Go ahead, but I guarantee you'll turn the ball over 4 times. Yeah. A game. You go right ahead. Obviously, Jaylen Brown is an ox. He's very, very strong. He can hold his own against just about anybody in the post as well, just based on how strong he is. Jason Tatum, we all know how good he is interior defensive-wise, and then 7'3" Porzingis. Obviously, Al Horford, guys like that off the bench. So, for me, Dallas, not nearly as switchable on these kind of three-point barrage attempts that you're going to try to get if you're the Mavs. So, again, if you're the Mavs and you're looking at every statistic that I've said here, how good the Celtics have been in terms of shooting volume, their percentage when they shoot 45 threes, when they get up a lot of shots, the percentage of teams in playoffs in general that win games that shoot more threes than you. It's going to be tough for the Mavs to keep up with all of those three-point attempts. Now, if you can find a way to slow down the Celtics' three-point attempts, fantastic. I got to be honest. I don't see how the Mavs have the personnel to do that with KP on the floor. If Al Horford was on the floor and you want to leave him and let him shoot 10 threes a game and I'm going to live and die by an Al Horford three-point attempt every day of the week.
Just as good as anybody. That's the scary part.
Yeah, but he still can. But again, there was about 5 games where he averaged half a three-pointer a game. He just couldn't make them. I mean, there was 2 games in a row in Cleveland where he went 0 for gopher. It went 0 for 10 from 3 in 2 games. He just couldn't buy a bucket. Then obviously the next game in Boston, he made everything that he possibly put up. But at the same time, if I'm the Mavs, sure. Out of everything that can beat me, shoot, if 38-year-old Al Horford beats me in the finals, all right. I mean, tip your cap and we'll be seeing you. That's good for you, I guess. But again, it's just a tough it's a tough matchup for the Mavs. I talked about how their defense is really predicated towards protecting the paint. And I know you talked about, the Mavs. Hey, listen, they beat Minnesota. They beat the Clippers. They beat OKC, right? Again, all 3 of those teams had offensive deficiencies that you can help off of that allows your defense to stay out of rotation on three-point shots or just not rotate at all. Just be yeah, go ahead, let that guy shoot it. You can't do that against the Celtics. They will just torch you. It'll be 15-0 before you can even blink. I mean, ask the Pacers. Yeah, they ended up coming back in Game 1. Ask the Pacers in Game 1. 45 seconds into the game, it was 12-0, timeout Indiana. Like, in the blink of an eye, they'll bury you. So, again, for the Mavs, Celtics win 84% of the time when they shoot 45 threes or more. Defensively, the Celtics are better at stopping the three versus the Mavs, and teams that take more threes than the other team win 80% of the time in the playoffs. Like, you've got to find a way to close that gap. And I don't see how Dallas is going to be able to close that gap, personnel-wise.
Dallas might have to, the more I looked at stuff, the Dallas is basically going to have to kind of go the Indiana route and just outscore them, essentially.
Exactly.
But if Luka can hit that, 20 points in the first quarter like he did in Game 5, I mean, I think they can go toe-to-toe with him.
Sure. And, for me, obviously this has been asked to me several times. And it's been asked on national TV and in podcasts all over the place. How in the world do the Celtics stop Luka? Here's the answer. You don't. You don't stop Luka. That is an impossible task. That is like saying in 2018, how do you stop LeBron James? You don't. You know what you do stop? Everyone else. If you can you can't hold LeBron James from scoring. He's just a freight train.
Yep.
You can't hold Luka Doncic from scoring. He's way too smart. He's too physically gifted. He's just too offensively skilled. And he has too deep of a bag to prevent him from scoring.
Yep.
But here's the difference. If he averages 35, 12 rebounds and 10 assists, Luka in the conference finals, it was something like that. If you can hold him to 31 points instead of 35, that's 4 points right there. And if you can hold him to 7 assists or 6 instead of 10 a game, right? That's another minimum
8 points.
6, 8 points.
Yeah.
That's a total of 12 points. That's 12 points off the board right there.
Yep.
You're winning that game if you're Boston. You don't have to stop Luka. If anything, let Luka go one-on-one. As much as you possibly can. Obviously, change up your looks. Obviously, blitz him sometimes. Obviously, double team him sometimes. Obviously, switch on screen sometimes. Obviously, play drop sometimes. Play up sometimes. Vary the looks, of course. Have Jaylen Brown go one-on-one with him. Have Drew Holiday. Have Derek White. Have JT. Have everybody take their turn guarding him at some point. But if Luka is taking a bunch of contested, tough mid-range jump shots, and he's not, and this is key based on one of your points before, he's not drawing in 4 defenders and kicking out to these wide-open corner threes, which is analytically the most efficient shot in basketball outside of a dunk, of course. And by the way, the other more efficient thing that they do is alley-oop dunks. So, if you can prevent a couple of those, and you can prevent Luka from passing out these corner threes and getting easy stuff for all their supporting guys, and instead of Kyrie scoring 29 points a night, he scores 24, 23. Again, the margin for error for the Mavs just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. That true shooting percentage for the team is going to start going down. Suddenly, Luka's got 40. Luka's got 40 and 14 rebounds. But he's working his tail off, and he's only got 5 assists. If I can get that stat line, I'm going to take it if I'm the Celtics. I would just let Luka do whatever he wants, let him control the game, because guess what? He's going to do it anyway. Right. He's going to do it anyway. Yeah. It doesn't matter what you do, he's going to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Make him work so hard in the finals and make him think, I got to do this myself. Because, listen, love Luka. He's one of the best players, if not the very best player in the world. I don't think he is. I think Jokic is still the best player in the world, but I can understand the argument. He's not the most in-shape fella.
No, not really.
I don't think that's what... Listen,
he's a little chubby.
Listen, he's a lot more in shape than I'll ever be. That's fair. But the point is that he's not. So if you're going to force him to play 42 minutes a game with already beat up legs and play defense on Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Derek White, Drew Holiday, Peyton Pritchard, Sam Hauser, all these guys that are going to just run around the three-point line or drive to the basket or, get posted up by Kristaps Porzingis on switches all day and get beat up in the post, right? At some point in a 7-game series, Luka's going to wear down. Because anybody who's not LeBron James in that spot's going to wear down. If you got to put the whole team on your back on offense and guard a lot of the best players on defense, it's gonna wear you out, especially if you're hurt already and you've never been there before. Ask Jason Tatum. he struggled a lot in the finals.
Yeah.
And that was against a team with basically one guy. Well, at the end of the day, Clay was wildly ineffective.
Yeah.
Andrew Wiggins was their second best player offensively, and their center was Kevon Looney. Like, he still struggled mightily because he was exhausted trying to guard these guys all day, right?
Yeah.
Plus, he had really grueling series before that. But the point is, I would let Luka do whatever he wants. I would let him, score, 40, 45 a night. But he's not going to win Finals MVP, because if he does that and he's not distributing the ball the way he has been in the playoffs, the Mavs are not going to be able to, again, all the math that I've talked about. And Luka can't, facilitate. Unless the Celtics just go ice cold on wide open 3-point shots, a la 2017 Houston Rockets for an entire series, I don't see how the Mavs win 4 times. Sure, 1 game, 2 games, with you. 4 times? That's a tough test. That's a tough task. It is.
Yeah. My next stat, or my next number, because we don't want pure numbers like in the last couple here. Number 6.
No, we're on number 4.
Well, no,
I'm kidding. I'm
kidding. Hold your horses.
Please don't hurt me.
So, Luka Doncic has a chance to be the 6th person to do quite a few feats.
Sure.
In the NBA Finals. Then there's been 6 occasions where a player has led their team in the playoffs in points, rebounds, and assists going into the finals. That includes coach of the Mavericks right now, Jason Kidd. He was with the Nets in 2002. Jokic from last year. Tim Duncan back in 2003. Before Duncan really hit his peak, because that's when he still had no. That was like the first title without David Robinson. They had just gotten Tony Parker and Manu. I think Avery Johnson was actually the point guard. I don't think they even had Tony Parker now that I think about it. So I was like, Duncan 2003 was before the Spurs. I was like, we really knew the Spurs in prime Duncan time. And then LeBron in 12, 13, 14, 15.
And 18, I assume, right?
In 18, no, he did not lead the team in points, rebounds, and assists going into
Who led them in assists in 18 or rebounds in 18? Tristan Thompson? Was he like the rebound guy?
Love, probably.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Probably
That's
Love.
Crazy. I would have if you'd have told me that LeBron averaged 45, 20, and 18, I'd have believed you. God.
Yeah, I mean, and he's still playing to this day. Love it.
It's
Honestly,
amazing.
love it. So that's 6 different occasions where a player has led their team points, rebounds, and assists going into the finals. 4 of those occasions netted them a championship. One of LeBron's years that wasn't a championship for the Heat, and then Jason Kidd, I'm pretty sure he was with the Nets that year. They lost to the Lakers that year. So 4 out of 6 occasions where players led their team in all 3 categories. So Luka has a pretty good chance of doing that. Also, Luka is the 6th scoring title winner to reach the finals. Now, there's a little bit less odds here. The scoring title doesn't always equal ring. But 2 players have won a ring after winning the scoring title that year. Shaq was one of them in 2000, and then MJ for both of the 3 beats. So
that checks out.
That checks out. But I mean, elite crowd. You're in a conversation that includes LeBron James, Tim Duncan.
his cousin James LeBron. It's going to be okay. We got this. We're only live. Don't worry about it.
We're only live.
We'll cut it out.
Even better. Yeah. So, I mean, you're in the elite crowd. Going back to Shaq, MJ, LeBron, Duncan, Jason Kidd, one of the better point guards to play the game.
Sure.
Coach for the Mavs. So, again, I'm going off more history here, but, I mean, there's a lot of historical things that are on Luka's side. So, it's again, do you let him loose and let him do all the things? But, at the same time, that's not a bad strategy. I think it's a bold strategy, Cotton. But, I think
strategy, Cotton.
An interesting one. And one thing I wanted to actually throw in, too, when you were talking about that, so I was trying to figure out how to work this in, but I couldn't. Came across this graphic. Percentage of field goals unassisted in playoffs. Unassisted, Doncic is 81.9% unassisted. So
that is bananas.
Maybe not leaving them wide open all the time is.
I didn't say leave him wide open. I said let him go 1-on-1.
Yeah, maybe not. Maybe leaving 101 isn't the best idea, because then he might go off for a 50 burger. I'm just saying. But the fact that Doncic, Kyrie, Tatum, Brown, they're all. I mean, considering all the players that were in the playoffs, that's all pretty good percentages for all of them. But then Doncic's just there at 81.9%. It's like,
my question is, who was above him? Who was number one? Who had like a 97% field goal percentage on unassisted field goals? Like, was it just like
Jokic?
I doubt it, because he struggled a couple of games. But I mean, I feel like it's like some center that like just literally all of his like non-assisted stuff was just like him just taking the ball.
Of course, Tyson Tank. Actually, but that is.
I don't know who it is, but that's crazy.
I'll have to figure out
what if it's like Derek White, like just some random. It might be Jamal Murray, honestly. Jamal Murray, I wouldn't be surprised if it was Jamal. Although he did really, really hardcore struggle the last like 3 or 4 games against the Wolves. But anyway, I will say, so you said that Doncic was one of 6 players in NBA history to lead his team in points, rebounds, assists going into the finals. Correct. Is that what you said? That was your statistic?
No, Doncic can be is like the 7th. There's been 6 occasions.
Okay, so he's the 7th. So he's the 8th.
Yeah.
Because Jason Tatum is also leading the Celtics in points, rebounds, and assists going into the finals this year. I looked it up. 27 points.
You're calling NBA.com wrong then?
I mean, stats. Look at this, folks. Celtics leaders. Hang on. Team leaders. Says it right up there. I know it's kind of hard to see with the lighting. Team leaders. Tatum. So, I don't know, maybe they just hadn't updated that. Or maybe it's because they don't want you to know that Jason Tatum's actually good, folks.
He's from Duke. Nobody likes him.
Exactly. It's driving me bananas. Jason Tatum doesn't know how to play in the playoff. Really? Do you know how many people have averaged 27, 10, and 5 in the playoffs for the Celtics in their history? One dude. His name is Larry Bird. And now there's 2. Jason Tatum is the only 2 guys in Celtics history that have ever averaged those statistics in the playoffs. But no, he sucks. It's great. Anyway, by the way, I'm surprised you didn't go in this route. This isn't one of my stats, by the way, because obviously this would help. This would help my case with Luka. But I read a stat the other day that Luka would be in unbelievably rare company if he were to win these finals, in that he would be the only player other than Larry Bird who at the time that he won his first championship was, I think, like 6 months younger than Luka right now, or like 6 months older than Luka, whatever it was, like 6 months off from Luka. Larry Bird was the number 1 option for the Celtics when they won his first championship. I don't remember what year it was. The only other guys that were 26 or like before they turned 26 to win a finals and really be like finals MVP or at least close to it was like Magic Johnson, but he had Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and then like Dwayne Wade, who had Shaq, and like maybe a couple other guys that I'm blanking hard, like Tim Duncan maybe, but he also had David Robinson and stuff like that. Right. So like
for one.
Right, but very rarely do you get a guy who's 25 years old or younger that is the alpha, the dominant, definite alpha on their team win a championship. Again, the only one that I can think of is Larry Bird. And Luka Doncic is possibly, if he were to win these finals, in that company, which would put you in, would put him in a stratosphere that very few players have ever reached at that age. LeBron didn't, Jordan didn't, like there's very few, Curry didn't, Giannis didn't, like there's very few guys that have really gotten there. So yeah, I figured that might have been where you were going with that, but obviously you went in a slightly different direction, but that's all good. I promise my 5th statistic has absolutely nothing to do with 3-point shots. I promise. So we're going to change it up here. I'm 100% positive on that. But again, I hammered that point home for a reason. The math is scary for the Mavs. That's kind of the main thing that I'm going for. They got to figure out a way to kind of mess with that, or else it's going to be very difficult for them to keep up. The last statistic here, my Celtics fans, my homies out there, you're going to love this stat. A lot of you probably know this stat. If you do, don't spoil it in the middle of my sentence, because Dan may not know this stat. He may know it, but he may not. He's not a Celtics guy. So here we go. After eliminating the Boston Celtics in the 2021 playoffs, when he was on the Brooklyn Nets, Kyrie Irving, after Game 5 in Boston, or after Game 4 or whatever it was in Boston, went to half court and stomped on Lucky, the logo of the Boston Celtics. Very big no-no. It's like stepping on the Dallas Cowboys star. Very, very big no-no in Boston. Very disrespectful. We all hated Kyrie. Boo that man forever, right? Since that moment in time, Kyrie Irving has played 10 games against the Boston Celtics. He is 0-10. He has not won a game against the Celtics when he has played since stepping on Lucky. Now, is that a coincidence? Most likely. However, I also like to think that it is a bit of a curse for Kyrie Irving that because he disrespected the kind of history and the sanctity of that Boston Celtics arena and everything that goes along with it, I feel like maybe, just maybe, he's got some more things to shake than just a basketball game. Maybe. I know it's a ridiculous stat. It has nothing to do with anything, but it is a true thing. It's not like, that's a real stat. Genuinely, he has not beaten the Celtics since that day. He has not even beaten them in a regular season, including, by the way, getting swept in the postseason in 2022 when he was with the Nets. So, like, genuinely, I'm not saying they're going to get swept. Obviously, they're not. I mean, at least I'd be the happiest man on planet Earth if that happened, but I'd be shocked.
I'll give you like $20 if that happened.
Like, Luka would have had to, like, blow out his knee in Game 1, like 5 minutes in, for me to even remotely believe that would happen. And even if that did happen, I feel like in one of the other games, Kyrie would go for 60 and they'd pull one out. Like, they would just have a nutty shooting game where Derrick Jones Jr. hits 8 of 9 from 3. Like just something ridiculous. But anyway, I'm not saying they're going to get swept. They're clearly not. They're way too good for that. And they have way too much pride for that, and they have way too much talent for that. But Kyrie's got a lot of bad juju in that Boston Garden, and I'm really excited. I said this on the podcast before you get to your last point. Nothing scares me more than the prospect of losing an NBA Finals to Kyrie Irving. Nothing scares me.
I'm sure there's a lot of Boston fans that feel
However, nothing excites me more in every aspect of life and in every part of my body than the thought of beating Kyrie Irving in the finals and saying, screw you, you chose wrong.
Right.
Like, what you did to the Celtics fans back then when you went out on half court and you stood right on top of that very logo that just 1 year later you'd be stepping on, and said, I want to re-sign if you all will have me. And you were showered with cheers and love and adoration. And then you shot 28% from the field in our playoff series. And then you up and left to go to the Brooklyn Nets because you wanted to play with Kevin Durant. Like, that's not cool, dude. Like, it's really not cool. And then obviously, I'm sure you remember in that 2022 playoff run where he was, flicking off the crowd behind his head and, cursing out everybody and, doing the crying stuff when he was at the free throw line, obviously he's lit. Listen, I have no bad blood with Kyrie anymore. I've been very, very outspoken on this podcast for years about him. He has seemingly, obviously I'm not seeing it every day, but seemingly grown a ton. He's saying all the right things. I haven't heard anybody in that organization in Dallas say a bad word about the guy. He truly seems to have found a home, and I'm happy for him. I'm glad he found a place that he can call home. I'm happy that it's not as an alpha because I just don't think he is one. I think that he will be.
He'll be forever the 1B just because he played so many years with LeBron, and I would agree. He's that 1B. I think he's that. He's not like your easy number 2, but you need a team. Yeah, there just has to be mutual respect among everything, and the Boston must have been a weird point in his life too, because it's like he just did some strange things when he was there, and a little bit after there too. It's like, maybe Mark Cuban set him down and said, "Look, kid,
Yeah.
this is how it's going to go here." Or
We got to figure this. Yeah, this might be your last shot, dude.
So I can see Mark Cuban being like that. I mean, Mark Cuban is not a pushover by any means.
Sure. And I think that if the Mavs were to win this thing and Kyrie Irving were to play great, but not quite as good as Luka, right? Like kind of like in the 2016 finals when he played great, but not quite as great as LeBron because it was just an otherworldly performance by LeBron.
Right.
Kyrie Irving might be the second best Robin of all time. Like I would look at like Scottie Pippen and then Kyrie. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the way I would look at it. Where like, yeah, sure, they're not even remotely the same player. Where Scottie Pippen was 90% defense.
Let's say sidekick. I don't. Go ahead.
Well, you don't like the term Robin? I mean, it's the same thing. Robin's like the ultimate sidekick.
Yeah, I'll explain that in a second.
Okay, but yeah, I think that he's an unbelievable 1B or a number 2 guy. But again, for me, like it drives me nuts all the time. I mean, I forget who it was. Somebody said that I genuinely was just, my mind was blown. I don't remember who it said it, but it was somebody on one of these national talk shows in the morning that just hate the Celtics for no reason all the time. And it was, the Mavs have the 2 best players in the series, which I don't agree with. I think Jason Tatum is probably the number 2. And now you can argue whether Kyrie or Jaylen Brown's the number 3. I'm willing to even say that maybe Kyrie is the number 3. I'm willing to at least hear that argument. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think it goes Luka, JT, JB, Kyrie. But you know what? For the sake of keeping the peace and for the sake of this argument, because I'm going to go on a tangent on another point here, I will even give you, out of the grace of my heart, that Kyrie and Luka are the 1 and the 2, or Luka and Kyrie are the 1 and the 2. I'll even give you that, even though I don't agree with it. I'll give it to you. They then said, okay, fine, so then JT and JB at 3 and 4, and then the rest of the Mavs starting 5. And then the rest of the Celtics starting 5 after that. I'm like, you're telling me that you think Daniel Gafford is better than Kristaps Porzingis, or better than Derek White, or better than Drew Holiday. You think Derek Jones Jr. is better than Kristaps Porzingis, or Derek White, or Drew Holiday. I will give you that maybe at this point in their careers, PJ Washington is better than one of those 3 gentlemen. I will be gracious and give that to you. But to think that Derek Jones, who is admittedly a great defender, is a better player than Kristaps Porzingis, a 7'3" monster who could shoot 40% from 5 feet behind the 3-point line and average 2 blocks a game, or Drew Holiday, who is universally considered the best defender in the NBA by players. I'm not necessarily saying by critics or by analysts or whatever, but sure. Or Derek White, who averaged 16 points a night this year and should have made first team all defense. He was the best defensive guard in the NBA. I love Herb Jones. And, guys, I mean, obviously Bam Adebayo speaks for himself, but they had 4 bigs in the first team all defense. You couldn't have taken one out and put another guard in there. I mean, really. And if you're not going to put him in there, put Jaden McDaniels in there, by the way. I would have put Herb Jones on second team. I would have put Jaden McDaniels on first team, even if that meant Derek White stayed on second team. Regardless, the fact that some people think that Derek Jones is better than Derek White or Drew Holiday or Kristaps. I saw you just look up Kristaps' stats. The man averaged 20 points a night this year.
Oh, no, I was going to say, he's only 7'2", not 7'3".
Oh, whatever. Whatever. Who gives a frick? With the shoes, he's 7'3", okay? With shoes. But the point is like, it blows my mind. It blows my mind. Just, like, there's not even a basis to back that up.
Yeah.
Like, I can't even see, like, I would have loved for them to have given numbers to back it up. Does he average more points per game? Does he average more rebounds? Or assists? Or blocks? Or steals? Or have a better plus minus? Or anything?
Yeah,
No, the answer's no. Like, it's just a stupid-ass argument. Excuse me, I don't curse very often, but I can't.
I'm sorry, the reason I've been silent, like this whole rant, or 500 rants you've had in the last, 2 minutes, I still can't figure out why that stat that I listed about Luka leading, points, rebounds, and assists, the only thing I can think of is maybe they were referring just to the conference finals, not all of playoffs.
Well, Jason Tatum led in all three of those categories in the conference finals as well.
He's technically one assist shy. If you look at if you look at the total, if you look at total, technically Derek White had one more assist.
Total numbers of
that's because that's what I was looking at. That's
maybe Derek White did lead them in.
Because here's what I'm referencing. Because I definitely want to point out what I'm referencing. Because they did it right after they won Game 5.
Better in the conference. Okay.
So they might have, fifth player in 6 years.
In total of those, okay.
So, but again, I still looked up Tatum all of this year's playoffs. He's still the leader in every of those categories, even at totals. But then I was like, are they referring to conference finals? So
I think it's just because they don't want you to give Jason Tatum credit for all the things that he's done. It's like, Luka's leading his team in all these categories.
It's a -10 automatic reduction in everything because he's from Duke.
Well, think about this. In the second round, Jason Tatum led the Celtics in points, steals, assists, blocks, and rebounds. He's only the second player to ever do that in any series in the playoffs. Ever. LeBron James in that series against the Warriors. He's the only guy to ever do it. He was the only guy on the team. Yeah, he's the only guy to ever do it. Everybody else got it. You know what they said about Jason Tatum after that series? He didn't play well enough. And it's like, brother, I don't know what you want from him. I don't get it. He just had a
I'm obviously not on that train of that, but I'm very mystified by this comment now of.
Yeah, and again, maybe it's just they didn't factor in, or they didn't realize that Jason Tatum has also led that. Or again, maybe they meant something else and they just have worded it poorly. I don't know, but all I know is that I just pulled up the stat news. You guys all saw it.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. So I guess we should come up with the fifth stat again.
No, you listen, Luka's counting stats are bananas. That can be your fifth stat. Okay. Hey guys, Luka is bananas. Sure. That's a like that, yeah.
Well, it is. I have an actual fifth stat.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm talking about replacement for one.
Go for it.
So how many movies are there that we've explicitly seen Batman and Robin in all the Batman franchise's movies? How many times have we actually seen Batman and Robin on screen?
Well, there was literally the movie called Batman and Robin,
right?
Back in the 80s or whatever it was.
It was late 90s.
Late 90s, whatever. I'm too young for that.
Maybe not.
I was like 2 in the late 90s.
You were alive.
I was 2. I didn't know what Batman was when I was 2. And even if I did, I'd have probably been very scared of him. As I am now. No. So there's that one, obviously. There was another one where there was
like explicit on screen, not reference.
So you're not talking about like the TV show, right? Where
no, just movies.
Okay, so just movies. So I know there was Batman and Robin. I know that there was another movie. I don't remember which one it was, but where there was Batman and Robin and Batgirl. They were all three.
Batman Forever. It was a
Batman Forever.
Even though it replaced Batman as a sequel.
And I'm trying to think.
It was actually just those two.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think if there was another one, but I don't think there was. Yeah.
For explicit actual on-screen, is this those two?
Yeah.
I use that to lead into something you just kind of referred to as Kyrie Irving being the Robin to Luka Doncic, which I don't think is a bad comparison. That's why I wanted to throw the term sidekick in there instead of Robin, because in a way I almost feel like we should be looking at Kyrie as kind of the Batman between these two. Because Kyrie's the veteran, Kyrie's the older guy here, he's the more stoic. Luka's is out there having fun. He's just like, whatever, I'm just going to keep on shooting these threes. If they go in, they go in. They don't, they don't. If they go in, I'll single-handedly outscore a team in one quarter to make sure we win the game, kind of thing. So I just, I bring that up just to kind of just talk about that duo as a whole. But I look at it as like, I get the Robin, comparison for Kyrie because he has kind of what we were just saying. He's been the 1B in any team he's played on. When he's had to be in that alpha role, it hasn't gone very well for him. He just can he handle a load? Can he handle, leading a team? Kind of almost like Damian Lillard in a sense of like he can definitely be the leading scorer on a team, but can he do it consistently throughout the year? And then, not all the time. Or it's not good if he's the consistent leading scorer for a team. Which is why we're all excited about Dame being in Milwaukee, unless you're, a Celtics fan.
They didn't impress me at all this year, quite frankly.
No, and we've talked about them too.
Yeah.
And what I just go back to that Game 5, which was amazing. It's the first time in 23 years that two teammates have scored a combined 35 point, or they have combined two teammates have both scored 35 points in a game. You want to know? Do you want to take a guess who the other duo was to last score 35 points each or more?
You said 23 years?
Yeah.
I assume if it's 23 years, you're looking at Shaq and Kobe.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's pretty easy math. Also, that Game 5 was the third time that Luka and Kyrie each scored 30-plus points each in points in a single games in that series. Jerry West and Elgin Baylor were the only other teammates to do it in NBA history. They did it in a series in 62 and a series in 66.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're talking about Luka, but it's like these two forces combined as this almost otherworldly. One more last thing. These two kind of give shades of the Warriors. I was thinking about this and came across this today. Luka and Kyrie, the way that they just put up shots, put up points, remind me a lot of the Splash Brothers at their height before Clay got hurt. Especially in that. Here's some stats for that. Splash Brothers average at least 45 points combined per game in all of their title runs in 15, 17, and 18 and 22.
Yep.
You want to know how many points Kyrie and Luke averaged in the regular season this year?
Regular season, Doncic was 32 or 33, and Kyrie was 26, so probably 60.
Close, yeah, 59 and a half.
Oh, I was off by half a point. Come on.
I 100% give that to you. I totally
probably
give that
about
to you.
60, yeah, something like that.
In the postseason, it's dropped to 51.6 point games. 51.6 points.
Yeah,
per game.
That makes sense. Yeah.
So that's why I give the Splash Brothers comparison, because the number here is 2.
Yeah.
This duo. I think it's top of line. It's gonna be harder to defend. It's going to come down to the small things. It's going to come down to who turns the ball over the least, who grabs more rebounds, especially in second chance. Especially for second chance points. It's going to come down to the small things. It's the role players, and because the Celtics have just as good of a duo as the Mavericks, if not better, with the Jays. And I wholeheartedly admit that. But Luke and Kyrie has been a winning formula for this team throughout all the playoffs. And it's going to be hard to stop that. And if both are that NBA Jam net on fire all night, and they can do that for 4 nights, I think they might only need 6 chances to do it.
Yeah, I think that
6 chances to do that.
I like that you did the Batman and Robin kind of thing there, because I'm actually going to borrow something from our old pal JJ Redick, who apparently may be the new head coach of the Lakers soon.
Yes.
With LeBron already on a podcast. It's going to be awkward. Anyway, are they
going to call each other out on that podcast?
I sure hope so. No.
Nothing.
I don't think anything brings a Celtics fan more pleasure outside of a championship than just watching the Lakers fall apart. I think that's pretty, there's nothing that brings me more joy.
Yeah, because both franchises, you guys are tied for the most NBA championships in NBA history at 17. Yep. This is another chance to break it.
Yep. But so I'm going to borrow something that he talks about all the time. So in basketball, you have your Batmans. Obviously, you got your guys like LeBron James, your Nikola Jokic's, your Giannis, the list goes on and on and on. Your Steph Curry's, right? Like on and on and on. You have your Robins, right? So your Batman, say, is Jason Tatum. Your Robin is Jaylen Brown. Your Batman is Jokic. Your Robin is Jamal Murray. Your Batman is Giannis. Your Robin is Damian Lillard. So on and so forth, right? Steph Curry, your Robin is Klay Thompson. You also, though, need Alfreds. Your Alfreds are not, they're the unsung heroes. They're behind the scenes. They're the guys that keep the whole ship afloat. When Batman and Robin are out there,
your Dennis Rodman, it's your Draymond Greens,
exactly.
It's
Kevin Loves,
the other guys.
By the way, LeBron, Kyrie Irving, or LeBron, Dwayne Wade, or so on and so forth. LeBron, Anthony Davis. Chris Bosh would be your.
I don't think they have an Alfred in LA right now.
No, they do not.
They're trying.
D'Angelo Russell's trying to be Alfred.
Austin Reeves tried last year.
Yeah, it's not working. But point being, when you look at Dallas. Okay, I'll give you PJ Washington as an Alfred. This year he's stepped up enough for me to say this year he has been an Alfred for them. Okay,
and you could have Lively too as a rookie.
Yeah, but he comes off the bench. Like it's hard for me to call somebody
that still makes an impact.
Sure, he makes a fantastic impact, but I would say Gafford and Lively combined would maybe be an Alfred, but separately no. However, you look at Boston, Porzingis, Alfred. White, Alfred. Drew Holiday, Alfred. You got 3 Alfreds. So that means your whole starting lineup is Batman, Robin, and Alfreds running around. By the way, I don't know if I'd consider Al Horford an Alfred. As a Celtics fan at heart, I probably would, but I suppose statistically probably he isn't if the other guys that I've already mentioned are not. So, in fairness to them, I will step aside on that. But for me... Man, I just, again, with all the math that I've talked about in the video, with the Celtics having 10 days to rest, and with Kristaps Porzingis coming back, the Mavs defense is going to be tested like they've never been tested before. They have had, quite frankly, defensively, as in their defense, 3 really favorable matchups for them, where they can pack the paint and really just make life difficult for the other team. The Thunder did as good of a job offensively and defensively as they could have, except for the fact that 2 of their starters were essentially non-factors in that entire series, in Chet Holmgren and Josh Giddey. They struggled mightily from the field. And then defensively, the Mavs did just enough to squeak by when it came to beating the Thunder in their defense. Because the Thunder, on defense, basically said, okay, they essentially did what I said, which is, we're going to let Luka do whatever he wants, and we're going to get our hands in the passing lanes, and we're going to try to not let him facilitate. Right. And they put Lou Dort on Luka all the time. And Lou Dort honestly did a pretty darn good job considering who he was guarding. He did a pretty good job. The problem is that on offense, when the Thunder got the ball, they couldn't do anything because, again, you had 2 guys that were useless. The Celtics have no guys that are on paper useless. Again, you never know what's going to happen. This is the first time Kristaps Porzingis has been in the finals. He's been out for a month and a half. He might come out there and stink.
Has it really been that long since the end of the first round? Yeah. Wow.
He's been out, I have to look back, but I know it's been at least 5, if not 6 weeks.
Wow.
So it's been somewhere in that range. But he might go out there and stink. Well, we've seen at least.
Honestly, that was because I wanted to ask you this too. Do you think you bring him off the bench game 1? No, throw him out there.
I think
limit his minutes maybe then at least.
I think that the most ideal circumstance by the end of the series is 28 minutes of Kristaps, 20 minutes of Al Horford. I think right now you could probably start out at 24 and 24. Give Al Horford 24 minutes, but the problem is that means that half the time on defense, Luka has a piece of barbecue chicken hanging in front of him that he could just switch to on a pick and roll and tear apart in Al Horford. Listen, I love Al Horford. He's
28.
If we win a championship this year, or with Al Horford still on the team, the Celtics better retire that man's number. He has been such an important piece for the Celtics in the last decade. I mean, he is just he's been a key cog in that whole thing, and he deserves it. I mean, he should. I don't know if he'll be a Hall of Famer. I think he's one of those guys that's the classic Hall of Very Good kind of guy, but he should be a Celtics Hall of Famer for sure. He's one of my favorite players that I've ever had the privilege of watching, even though he's never really been the main guy on the team.
Right.
But
he's understood that role.
But he's 38 years old. Yes. And he's not very fast. Now, granted, neither is Luka. Like, Luka's not very fast either, so I guess that helps you if you're Al Horford. But guess what? Nobody else could guard Luka either. It doesn't matter if he's not fast, right? So it's like they said that about Steph when he first came in the league. It's like, oh, he's not very laterally quick, so he's not going to be able to navigate off screens. I'm pretty sure he turned himself into literally the best off-the-ball screen guy in the history of the NBA.
And an ungodly shooting range. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Doesn't hurt either.
And so, Al Horford for those 24 minutes, he's just gonna get Luka's gonna feast. So is Kyrie Irving, right? So that's one of the weaknesses of the Celtics defense is their pick and roll defense has been kind of bad these playoffs. Now, again, you could say it's because they haven't had Kristaps. But if Kristaps isn't 100%, you basically still don't have Kristaps because he's going to have to play drop a lot because he's not going to be able to move. Right. If you play drop against the Mavs, you saw what happened with the Wolves. They played drop. Luka and Kyrie went bananas. So it's tough, but I would say ideally Kristaps plays 28 to 30 a night. Al gets the rest of those minutes because Al, when he's playing those few minutes in the fourth quarter, is a better chance he's going to be making 3-point shots. He can stand up. In that fourth quarter, if it's a close game and he gets switched on to Luka, there's a better chance he's not going to get cooked because he's not going to be as tired. Maybe he can hold his... Listen, he got cooked 8,000 times in a row against the Cavs. Then there was a moment in Game 5 where the game was close. Darius Garland drove right by him like he did over and over again in that series, but there was just that one time that Al Horford had enough energy to get back, catch up, and block it against the backboard. It helped turn the game. If you could just have one time where that happens, it's going to turn the tide. And the less that he plays early on in the game, the more likely that's going to be able to happen if you're Al. So, again, 28 minutes for Porzingis, 28 to 30, and then the rest of those minutes go to Al. If they're both healthy, I better not see Luke Cornett or Xavier Tillman or O'Shea Brissett. Listen, I love all three of those guys. Luke Cornett has played great this year. I'm a big Xavier Tillman fan, and O'Shea Brissett helped us turn the tide in that game too against the Pacers last series. But yeah, gotta be Porzingis and Al, and I better not see anybody else. They're both healthy. So
there you go. So I'm picking Mavs at 6.
Yeah, you mentioned that earlier. I'm hoping that you are as correct about this as you were with Cody not finishing his story. Because if you're as correct with that, then Tyler will have a fantastic couple of months here with that. But no, look, man, I get it. It's the popular pick. I read that somewhere in the 89% of sports bets on the NBA Finals were picking the Mavs. It is a because they're heavy underdogs, and people think that the Celtics are going to choke and that they are going to, show their bellies like they have in the past. But the difference between this team and the teams in the past is that this playoff run, we have not shown our bellies.
Yeah. It's been incredible. I think it's been the second best ever in Boston history. They've only lost 2 games in this run. As much as I'm, cheerleading the Mavericks and stuff, I have no problem with Boston winning. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if Boston won in 5, to be honest. Yeah. I think it could very easily be done in 5. Gentlemen's sweep. Boston is just looking that good, and the matchups just are there across the board. It's like P.J. Washington, Derrick Jones, they're gonna have their, Lively Gabbard, they're gonna have their career. This is gonna make or break them, and it's probably gonna break them because it's like. Again, you switch defenses and stuff. You're basically going to have to outscore the Celtics. It's Luka and Kyrie are going to have to go 70 combined points a game every single game.
Yeah, and to me,
it can be done, but
and to me, right, I also look at a couple of other things where when the Mavs played the Celtics in the regular season, they blitzed Tatum a lot, torched him. Everybody made shots. They got destroyed when they blitzed. So either you're going to do that again when there is film with the roster they have right now of it getting torched. So it's okay, you're just asking for it. You got torched when you did in the regular season. Why are you doing it again here? It's like when Miami, they played zone sometimes against the Celtics in the regular season because the zone would kill us in the playoffs. and then we just ate it alive because we had Kristaps. And then they played him in the postseason, and then they played zone, and we ate him alive. And yet they kept going back to it, and every time they'd switch back into the zone, we just tear it apart and score instantly. And it's like, what? Why do you keep doing that? Like, stop! Like, I get you're trying to change up your looks, but like, stop. So you're either doing that if you're blitzing, or you're going to not blitz, which means that everybody's going to have a one-on-one advantage, which means somebody's going to have a mismatch.
Yeah.
Like, you can't let Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum go one-on-one all day with no interior help in the paint because Gafford or Lively's pulled out and just expect that you're going to be successful. Yeah. So it's going to be tough, but also I really look at the bench for the Mavs, and that does scare me a little bit. I think the Mavs have a bit of a better bench.
That's what I was asking. Is there one thing outside of Luka and Kyrie that does worry you?
Yeah, so Jaden Hardy's played well. He's like exactly the type of guy that would destroy the Celtics. Like, there's a guy in every
random 25-point game.
There's a guy in every series. There's your Karis LeVert. There's your Caleb Martin, your Max Strus, your I don't know, TJ McConnell. Like there's always a guy that just goes banana sandwich against the Celtics in the playoffs, and Jaden Hardy has the attitude, the athleticism, and the just I don't really give a rip, and just starts chucking up shots and making everything. Like I could definitely see it. Like that happening, but I just think that they have a bit of a better. It's too many B's in a row. A slightly more upgraded bench. I couldn't say all the B's in a row again. Obviously Lively coming off the bench, right? You could say Al Horford. Even if I don't think they're equals. I think Lively's better. But let's just, for the sake of comparison, say that cancels each other out. Your 6-man cancels each other out. Jaden Hardy. Pretty good scorer. All right, maybe you bring in Peyton Pritchard off the bench. That kind of cancels that out. Well, then outside of that, you got Josh Green. Josh Green is better than Sam Hauser. And then beyond that, anybody else you bring in off your bench, Kleba, Hardaway, right? You got all these other options. The Celtics don't really have any more options beyond that. So I think that the bench is a bit. I did it again. Bench is slightly better. If you're the Mavs, bench is a bit. So I like their bench a lot. But it's genuinely, even with that. I mean, I look at the Pacers series. The bench outscored the Celtics for the Pacers like 1,000,000,000 every game, and they lost 4 times. Yeah. So, like, for me, and now granted, that's probably not going to happen against the Mavs, considering you got Luka and Kyrie out there that are going to get 60 points by themselves.
That's what's going to be interesting. It's like, Indiana had a good team. They had good people in a lot of spots, but outside of Siakam, wow. Outside of Siakam and Halliburton didn't even play 2 of the games, if I remember correctly. Correct. They didn't really have that alpha that could just take over a game like a Tatum or Brown or Luka or Kyrie.
Yep. Yeah, and one of the reasons why I kind of went when you were comparing them to the Splash Bros is I understand statistically speaking that it matches up a bit, but the Splash Bros, their entire identity was screens and off-ball movement. And Luka and Kyrie is everything off the dribble. Yeah. Everything off pick and roll and off the dribble. I mean, all right, you're going to set a screen. I'm going to get you on my hip. I'm going to dribble 934 times as I look around. Nobody can steal the ball because I'm magical. And then, look, there's a guy over there that I haven't looked at in 20 minutes wide open. There you go. Like, that's more of what Luka and Kyrie can do. And obviously, Kyrie's finishing ability around the rim is probably unlike anybody in the history of the NBA, as are his handles. I hate to admit this, but I'm pretty sure Kyrie Irving is the best pure ball handler in the history of the NBA. I mean, I don't know of anybody that's better. I mean, maybe just pure, like, bananas ball handling. You're looking at, like, maybe Jason Williams, White Chocolate. Or not Jason Williams. Jason Williams? No, I don't know why I thought I got his name wrong. White Chocolate, right? Back from the Kings back in the day. Yeah. You could say Allen Iverson, but I think Allen Iverson was amazing for his time, But if you compared him like one-on-one to Kyrie, like Kyrie just destroys him in terms of his skill level of ball handling. Again, Iverson, amazing for the time, much like Bob Cousy was amazing for his time. But again, if you put it right now, Kyrie eats them alive. But again, the only guy that I can think of is White Chocolate. That may be up there. Mm-hmm. But I can't recall anybody that's better at just dribbling the basketball and having it be on a string than Kyrie Irving. And so, the ability to make tough shots, I get it, but here's the thing. I trust, again, I've talked to death about 3-point shots. I trust the Celtics' ability to get open shots much more than I trust the ability for the Mavericks to make enough contested mid-range jump shots to beat the Celtics in a 7-game series. It's like the Pacers. I already said they made like 65% of their 2-point field goals. Mm-hmm. At one point in game 3, I want to say, they were like 15 for 21 on contested step-back mid-range jump shots. Like the hardest shot in basketball and the most analytically hated shot in basketball, they were just wetting all day long. They just couldn't miss. And it's like one of those things where you're like, oh, good Lord, like, what do you want us to do? They won't miss anything. And guess what? They lost. So, I just, again, to me, the math it's just not there for the Mavs. Unless they figure out a way to beat the Celtics on pick and roll so badly on a consistent basis that the Celtics can't adjust and they're just hitting, and all their role players are just hitting corner 3 after corner 3 after corner 3 over and over again.
PJ is going to have to step up big.
Yeah.
Gafford's going to have to be forced in the perimeter, or forced under the rim and stuff. But I look at PJ as kind of as their best chance of being that alpha. Kind of going back to that comparison you were making. It's on a team that has a lot of those really good role players that could easily be a 1B on pretty much any other team outside of Boston right now, and maybe one or two other teams, obviously, But yeah, no, it's finally like, a couple years ago when they got KP, it's like, oh, this is our guy, and it didn't quite work out, and then all of a sudden now they have Drew, and it's like, it seems like the stars are truly aligned for Boston, but it's kind of like, Dallas is kind of like, we got nothing to lose.
Yep. And when you got nothing to lose, you play free, you play loose, and good things tend to happen. So,
and I've heard that about Luka and Kyrie too. Like Kyrie's been able to kind of just help Luka take breaks and mental breaks, and like when he's not at the court, enjoy just life outside of basketball. And that that's maybe somehow translated this year, in a mindset to, it's like, where he's like, now he's, instead of just focused on basketball, he's like uber focused on basketball, and that's why he's just eating every team alive with averaging, I think, almost 32 points, 33 points in just the postseason. So
sure,
a forced, it's, again, this can be a great series to watch.
It is.
I hope it goes 6 or 7 just so we can enjoy more matchups between these two teams. I hope it isn't a 4 or even 5 game series. I wanted 7 just to have 7 matchups.
Sure.
As many possible between these two teams. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
Well, I guess the last thing to do is give my prediction. I want so badly to say Celtics in 5. I really do. Because
I wouldn't blame you at all.
Yeah, I'm tempted, but I can't. I have underestimated the Mavs way too many times. And I know that maybe the kind of perspective from you guys watching is that I don't respect the Mavs and what they're able to do. That is not true. I just truly, again, as a Celtics fan, and just as a guy who covers this sport pretty regularly and watches a lot, I truly think that this is about the worst matchup the Mavs could have had. Yeah. Now, there are some other teams, right, like Denver, that I would have been like, oh, this is the worst matchup the Celtics could have possibly had. But the Mavs, to me, their entire scheme plays right into the Celtics' strengths. And so for me, it's like good. Like a lot of teams can make us play into our weaknesses. Like for instance, Indiana on defense, they just cause chaos, and our entire defense is structure. Yeah, literally random. I don't know if you guys caught that in my last video. Literally, Andrew Nemhard said, yeah, we just need to continue to play random. And it's like, oh, God, they don't even know what they're doing out there. They just go out there and do whatever the hell they feel like. It's like playground stuff. You know, it's crazy. Anyway, but again, I do respect the Mavs. I am very scared of Luka. And as much as I sit here and think, yeah, let Luka do whatever he wants, I can guarantee you in the moment, if Luka starts dropping 40, 45, 50 points a game, I don't care if he's got 5 assists or not. I'm gonna be wetting myself, like, oh no, God, he's never gonna stop.
I'll be texting you, it's like, you're still alive over here?
Like, it's gonna be very stressful, and again, nothing scares me more than the prospect of losing a finals to Kyrie Irving. I don't think I'd be okay. As most Celtics, I don't hate Kyrie Irving as much as a lot of Celtics fans do, and I don't think I'd be okay. Never mind some other guys that, like, you know, some guys on like the WEEI radio stations that are like just hate Kyrie so much, like they're just like, oh, you bum, you know, like
Boston media hates anybody not in Boston.
Well, yeah, fair enough, but anyway,
or has ruined Boston for them.
Right. So I want to say Celtics in 5, but I'm not going to. I'm going to say Celtics in 7. Because again, I said Pacers in 7, and I would much rather be happy and wrong than, you know, correct. I mean, granted, correct. I'd be fine with being correct because that means we win the finals. So like I just want us to win the finals. It's got to be this year, because if we don't win the finals this year, all I'm going to hear all off season is trade Jason Tatum. They had an easy road to the finals. They're the worst good team in the history of anything. And I can't. I won't be able to handle it. So finish the job. There's no excuses.
Finish the story?
Sure. I'm really trying not to say
Finish the story, Boston.
Finish the story, Boston. God darn it. Do it. No, but there's no excuses. You are a better team than the Mavericks. They just are.
Yeah.
On paper, analytically, everything. I believe they have the second and third best player in the series. I'll give you Luka's the best player. He might be the best player in the world. I mean, he's unbelievable. But the Celtics have a better team. I don't think they have quite as much full depth, but their starting lineup is leaps and bounds better than the Mavs. The math is on their side, as I've said a billion times here. It's got to be now. I mean, if it's not this year, you've got Milwaukee you got to deal with. You got a healthy Knicks squad you got to deal with. You got Philly next year you got to deal with. You got Denver. You got Minnesota. You got OKC. You got the Clippers. You got the Lakers. You got the... It's going to be bonkers. You got the Magic, right, that are probably going to be a lot better than they were last year. And this year, they darn near made it to the second round of the playoffs. And they were one of the best defensive teams in basketball. By the way, I did forget to mention this earlier. Everybody talks about how non-clutch the Celtics are. Let's talk about the Mavs. Mavs are very clutch. 4th best clutch time point differential in the NBA. You know who was number 3? Boston. I'm not saying they're better in the clutch. They're not. But the point is that they're pretty good in the clutch too. Like that's a kind of a misconception for this year's team, not in the past. This year's team.
Games within 5 points under 5 minutes are going to be very interesting for the series.
And yeah,
it could easily happen
if the Celtics can take 2 of those clutch time games too. Yeah. I don't know what the Mavs are going to do. Like that's their bread and butter. It's, you know, we might stink for 3 quarters. Let's keep it close and figure it out in the 4th, right?
I know we've been going for a while too here, but how I have to ask this though. How worried are you if Boston loses game 1?
Not worried. I think it depends on how you lose, right? I think if you go out there on your home floor and you get just beat to shreds, you can look at it one of 2 ways. You can either say, whew, yeah, we're kind of screwed, aren't we, boys? Like, I don't know what we're going to do to stop these guys. We had a game plan, and they were ready for it, and we're in trouble. Or you could be like, God, we sucked tonight, but hey, you know what? We can't go down anymore. All we can do is go up, and we're going to come out next time, and we're going to show them who's the better team. Because, again, I think the Celtics have the better team.
Yeah. And
when the better team plays harder, it's going to be hard for the other team to win. That's just how sports is. So I'm not super worried. But again, if you lose a close one, it's like, well, it's the Mavs. It's what they do. Right. We got to figure out how to win these close games. But let's make adjustments. Let's figure it out. We were close. We can win game 2. So I'm not super worried. I think what would worry me is if you lost 2 games in a row. because as much as the Celtics have struggled in the playoffs at home or all that stuff, they have been so good on the road. They haven't lost on the road. They've won all of their games on the road. Bonkers, by the way, to think about that they've lost 2 games and they were both at home, and they haven't lost a single game in playoffs on the road. I don't think they're going to sweep the Mavs on the road in this series. I mean, I'd be pretty shocked. Unless, of course, it was a sweep, then that would make sense. But I don't think that's going to happen. So for me, I would be frustrated if the Celtics went out and won game 1, like especially if it was like pretty convincing, like if they won by like 12, 15, 18, whatever, and then they lost game 2, and then they lost game 3. That would scare me, because for all their flaws, man, are they good at making adjustments when they lose.
Yeah.
They are
I'm pretty sure they had like 3, maybe 4 instances of losing 2 games in a row throughout the regular season, but they never lost.
I don't even know if they had that many. I remember
it was at least 2. It might have been 3, but they never lost 3 in a row.
Right. So it's one of those things where, like, oh man, if you go back, you make adjustments, and you lost on your home floor, and then you go out in Dallas and they still outplay you, that would scare me. That would scare me. I saw one of the I think it was somebody on the Volume said that they predicted Celtics in 6, and it was mirroring what happened to the Celtics against the Warriors. The Celtics would win game 1, the Mavericks would win game 2 and win game 3. And as soon as I said that, I was like, if we lose game 2 and game 3, we're not coming back. We're not. Like, if they beat us 2 games in a row after we adjusted, forget it. It's not happening. Luka and Kyrie are going to have way too much confidence. They're going to average 80 points. And that's going to be it. Like, there's nothing else is going to matter, because that means your role players are playing well. It's not going to be good. So, I think it's going to be Celtics in 7. I think you're probably going to just trade games for the entire series. I think it's going to go Celtics, Mavs, Celtics, Mavs, Celtics, Mavs, Celtics. Like, it's gonna be just such a seesaw back and forth, like WWE match. Yeah, right. Boo. Yeah, boo.
Bring up the Undertaker right at the end.
Exactly. Just
but I think
Kyrie's about to hit the game-winning shot. Some fan comes out, tombstones him, and just like that. Kyrie broke his neck. Oh my God!
that game 7 being in Boston. If there's a game 7, being in Boston is going to be insane, because that crowd will just. I mean, that's going to be nuts no matter what. But I mean, that TD Garden gets loud.
It sure does. Well, listen, it's going to be a wonderful series. I'm looking forward to watching it, Dan. I'm looking forward to hopping back on here with you after the series is over. We're not going to be doing it at least we don't plan on doing it next week. I guess you never know if it's a sweep in either direction. We may have to, but we don't plan on doing it next week. We're going to be doing Clash the Castle predictions and stuff next week, so keep an eye out for that, folks. But that's going to do it for the stream. Man, if you guys are still here, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you. You guys are awesome. What do you guys think? Who kind of had the more foundationally strong arguments here? What do you guys think? Who do you think's going to win? How many games? Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's neither somehow? Dan probably. The right part, not any of the other things. But that's it, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and